Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Success Codes podcast. I am so over the moon excited to introduce my special guest. Her name is Colleen Biggs. She's a 22-year business strategist who empowers business leaders to expand their influence through peak performance habits to attract the right clients and drive more profits. And there's much more to her bio. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but in the true spirit of jumping right into it, I want to welcome this amazing guest, Colleen. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Melinda. Hello. I'm so humbled to be here today and amongst your viewers and listeners.
We are going to have so much fun. I already know that she is an amazing podcast guest because we both have been on the same podcast, just different episodes. And that is Mark J. Carter's podcast called the Idea Climbing Podcast. And the episode that Colleen was on is called How to Design a Successful Business. And it is amazing. So I'm going to put the link to that podcast in the show notes as well as the link for my episode in case you haven't seen that, because we're obviously crossing some audiences here. So definitely want to give a shout out to Mark for the introduction. So we are going to dive right in because one of the many things that Colleen is a total maverick at is building community. And she has a community called Leap that really specializes in empowering businesswomen and giving them a stage for visibility. So I would love personally, because I don't know how this piece of your business got started and what it's like to be part of your community. So we'll start there.
Well, I'm glad you asked, and thank you so much. I number one think it's so important for us to be with like-minded people, but energetically the same people that we get along with. So when I say find your tribe, remember when you were like growing up and you had like your girlfriends, and there was always your girlfriends that you felt so comfortable with. I remember I used to go out of town and vacation when I was younger. We're talking like early 20s with my girlfriends. And I just learned so much from them. It was a time for me to focus on me and be myself. We had conversations about being a mom and what that looked like and being a wife and struggles in our marriages, right? I just remember learning about hormones and body changes and all the things that were coming, as we got older, and how important that was. And how that we connected so well. Well, the reason why I wanted to start a community was because there were really two things as a business consultant and strategist that I've been for 22 years, like you had said, is you've got to tell everybody about you, number one, and you've got to build long-lasting relationships with people. And those are really the only two things I do that are top level priority in my business. And that has always built in all of our businesses that my husband and I own, successful businesses. So the tell everyone about you was visibility. And how do I tell everyone? I do ads, right? Maybe I promote myself and do live videos. I connect in networking. And then those women give me opportunities to be on their podcast or maybe one of their stages or summit. And so I wanted to build a community that gave women the opportunity to get visibility for their brand so everyone could hear about them. Thus, I had started a company way back in 2018 called the Lead Up for Women. And I was in that, had a live radio show. It was an online community, it was an in-person community because I didn't start online until October of 2019. And most people are like, oh, you started in COVID. And I said, no. I actually went online in October 2019 because I used to fly all over the United States to do all these pop-up luncheons and network and bring women together for 3 hours. And it was awesome and very expensive. And I was like, my business plan I can't do this anymore. I either have to make them much larger, or which I would rather do locally, what if I brought them online? I had been using Zoom for about 4 years up to that point. I thought, what if I just take us online? I told them all about it. I gave them a link. I said, let's all join online. We did. And they were like, back in the day, we were using GoToMeeting and things like that. They thought Zoom was fantastic. So we started using that. And that kind of really had what built the community from there. I had a business breakup with my business partner in 2022. And a lot of ladies were like, we do not want you to leave. We do not want you to step away from leading us. So I said, well, work with my private clients in the Leap platform. So why don't we just call it the Leap community? And we'll do the podcast, Take the Leap, instead of Lead Up for Women. So I rebranded, and this is true for anyone out there. You can rebrand and come back really strong. The community of women I had around me, Melinda, were amazing. And I was ready to step down because I knew that I had this kind of background business breakup going on, but they didn't know. They didn't know any of that. And they said, we're here for you. We love you. We love the community you've created for us. We love the visibility. Please, 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 please keep doing this. So I had just decided to kind of start my own community at that point legally, right? It's not a rebrand, it's starting your own. And then the women had to join that community because it was a different one. And they didn't care. They were like, whatever we need to do. If you're not charging us over here, we'll come join over here. And so this community is not about funneling clients through. This community was built for the individual women like you, Melinda, and like all the women that are part of the community to meet each other, to network, to build their social capital, which means opportunities that are open for them, just like when I'm in other women's groups. But I really wanted a community where women could get the visibility and the collaboration and the networking at the same time so that they all felt empowered and elevated, so that they had the knowledge they needed to design and build their own successful businesses.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. I didn't know all that. And the fact that you're
Most people don't.
kind of like me, I guess you could say. I didn't get on social media until 2019. I thought I was like the last person. So no, that's amazing. And do you find there are still a vast amount of women who are just not showing up in their full potential?
Most of them, actually. So I would say the vast majority of women business owners don't. It's like almost like unicorns to find women like us who are out there and we're kind of, leading the charge and running the podcast and bringing on the guests. And we're the ones constantly promoting other people and sharing spotlights. I create local events that have 140, 160 business women there, and have vendors and speakers. And these are incredible places for women to grow and learn, right? And I think that's the important piece. We talk about empower, but what does that really mean? When you're empowered, you have the tools and the knowledge necessary to make thorough decisions, educated decisions of something that you need to do next. That's being empowered, right? And so you empower a woman, you empower the world. And I really do believe that. But there are a lot of women on the flip side of the coin that are afraid that someone will call them out and see them as a fraud. That's the number one thing I'll say. Like, I don't know why they feel that way, but Rhonda Byrne, she wrote The Secret. And the one who wrote the Harry Potter books, do you remember who that author was? I can't remember
Yes.
at
And
the moment.
yeah.
They both said the
Blanking.
same thing. Is this book going to be the book where I'm discovered and then they find out I'm a fraud? They believe that still, even though they've written these amazing books and they've built these amazing movies and all of this, has been because of them simply starting and going down this path and bringing other people along with them, they still think they're a fraud. So it's in all of us at every level. So you got to just get out there. There's no way to design a successful business if no one knows who you are. So you've really got to show up. I love it when people say, my gosh, I see you everywhere. And I'm like, then I'm doing it right. Then I'm doing it right.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. And that's really the goal, and that's why visibility is so important. I built communities around it for the community. I built conferences around it for the women. there in the conferences. I don't do enrolling events. I used to, and I stopped doing them. And people tell me all the time, coaches tell me, you should do enrolling events. And I always say, I want this event to be about the people in the room. I want it to be about who they can connect with. I want to do more networking roundtables. I want this whole day to be about them and not about me. And I want it to be about the speakers and the panelists. And I want them to walk away feeling elevated, like they got what they needed and they've connected with the women they needed to really help them, in their business or their personal life. So I think that's very important when we kind of take ourselves out of that equation and create gatherings, and that's really what I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. And on that note about J.K. Rowling's, thank you.
Oh,
Like I
that's
know
who
it
it
comes
is.
to me.
Thank
I'm
you.
like, it's good. I'm like, we all know who she is. I've heard this about that Oprah has said this after she's had interviews, and maybe you've heard this too, that the vast majority of the people that she interviews, including Beyonce, I remember Beyonce was named in this, they'll look at Oprah after the interview and be like, was that okay? Did I do
How
okay?
did I do? Yep. I
Yes.
read that exact same thing in her autobiography book. And that is the truth. And that's usually what I hear after interviews that I do. And no matter, and look at who those women are and men are that are saying that to her. And in our minds, we're like, wow, we think they're incredible. But that just goes to show that we are really all on the same level when it comes to working on our personal development, working on our mental health, working on our mindset. Every single day as individuals, we still feel like there could be someone out there that could judge us. And what if, gosh, could you imagine, Melinda? What if we lived in a judge-free world? Could you imagine how that would feel for everyone around you? So these types of communities that I build, they're judgment free. And I really don't want anyone in it that's going to be mean, that's going to be harsh to someone else, that's going to take, never give back, never pour into anybody else. I think there are communities out there that would be the perfect fit for you, but mine's not. And that's why I meant like find the tribe
Yeah.
that you really feel is your kind of people.
Exactly. So I think some people struggle then if they have someone within their group that isn't a good fit. And I know that my husband and I, we dealt with this last year with one of the communities, and there were a lot of different things that happened, and we moved through it. We let ourselves through it, but I'd love to hear your take on, if someone is afraid to start a group of getting someone that's, not a good fit, or maybe they have a group and they're struggling with someone in it that's not a good fit. Like, what would your advice be for those
Well,
people?
I'm going to ask you this question really quickly, and then I'll move to that answer. Out of all the groups you've ran or the thousands of people that are within your groups, how many people, honestly, have you attracted that didn't fit that type of energetically that you thought?
It's very small, and I have to
Very small.
remind my husband all the time, what are our percentages? Like, consistently remind him, because
Yeah.
even with running sport fishing charters, like in having clients, and like if he has a client that's not a great client, let's say, and comes home and he's not feeling so good, I'm like, your percentage is like bananas. We've been running charters for over 12 years. Like, we've been doing all
Yeah.
these things for a very, very long time. We're very seasoned, and it
Yeah.
hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking that question, because it's true. And I know
Yeah.
that. So it's a great thing to share with the audience.
And that was a
Yeah.
lead in really to my answer because it rarely happens. I mean, I've been running masterminds, and these are small groups of women, 4 to 7, right? Small groups of women. And it's very rare that you get one in there that is a bad apple or a bad seed. And I have asked them to leave and tell them that I didn't think this was the best place for them. And that was the end of it. I don't have to kick anybody out of my communities. I will tell you that they just naturally leave. They
Mhm.
do, because it's not where they're feeling that they're getting what they need.
Mhm.
And I think we need to remember two things. We get filled up by the kindness and the love and attention and people pouring into us is one big piece of it. The other piece of it is us being able to now serve other people and be able to pour into them, right? So now, like, maybe you're the student, but now maybe you're the teacher. And there we learn and show up in different ways for each one of those roles, and we need both of them. So I feel like me being around more women that have asked me, just like you, Melinda, to trust their instincts, trust their intuitions. I've learned to hone in better on trusting my instincts and trusting my intuition. Then when I hang out with other women who are more analytical and they're talking to me about numbers and financials and P&Ls and balance sheets, and then I'm really focused on those things at that time. So I believe that we need to balance out what I call our social construct with people that really are in all of those areas that help us feel very well-rounded. And there's going to be certain seasons where you need to lean in a little bit heavier into those individuals, and other seasons where you lean into others. I know for me, I've really focused a lot on my health lately. So I've been focused more on health coaches. I've been focused a lot on anyone that's going to be able to assist me with cleanses. I mean, you could look it through my feed on TikTok, Instagram, my search, and it's all about people that are teaching me more about supplements and my internal, my digestion, all of that. Where there's been many years where I just focused on business coaching, and I had a lot of business coaches, and I really focused on all of those pieces of what I needed to learn how to build conferences, learn how to build retreats, right? I was in the building phase. Now my husband and I are launching a franchise. So I'm, really focused on a lot of the franchise area. And so I'm back to building a business and looking at some of those pieces. So we need to realize that we're not always, I think, in the same place the entire time in our lives. We shift around a little based on what we need a little more of. Your body kind of does the same thing, right? Maybe it needs a little bit more focus on muscle strength or whatever. Maybe it needs a little bit more focus on, weight gain or weight loss or whatever that looks like. So I think it's trusting the people around you. And you can feel, you and I talked about this earlier, you can feel other people's energy. I have been in line at a grocery store and could feel other people's energy. I've been, on vacations and have felt other people's energy. And it literally affects me physically, like physically affects me. And so I will say that we need to make sure that we're putting those people around us, and starting a community is something we should really all do. If not just selfishly for ourselves, that community might be a community locally where you live, your neighbors, right? Just getting together and having, some fun with some neighbors, or having a block party, or doing a little potluck or something. I think the more that we try to get to know people around us and spend time, we'll find that we're supported more by those that, we put in that circle.
Yeah, right on. And one of the things you talked about in Mark's podcast, which I completely agree with, is when you go to a community or go to an event, let's say, I can't remember the specific example you said, but if the energy feels off, you're just like, you leave.
I'm out.
I'm
I leave.
out. I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm out. I move. I'm like, bump out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
And I do
hesitate anymore.
Yeah.
Because the times I have, it never changed. So yeah, I think there's a lot for that too, for someone, on the other side, like, okay, this isn't a good fit for me. This isn't my tribe. This isn't my audience, whatever you're looking to build, I think is really important.
I've done it through, different ways. It's other women's groups that have invited me out as a guest, and I've gone, and I've literally walked in the room and seen a few friends of mine, and of course had conversations with them. But then as the night went on, it was like other women weren't talking to me. There was weird, I don't know, energy in the room. And I just left. I told my girlfriends, like, I'm out. And they're like, you okay? And I'm like, I'm good, but I'm going to leave. So I'll call you guys, later.
Yeah.
And so I left. I don't really need to put myself through any of that for the whole night. I don't owe anybody anything. I owe myself the truth. So I left. I didn't want to be around. I knew I was never going to be part of this group. I didn't want to be in the energy. And then there's other times where I've shown up where I just couldn't get enough. And the hours just, went, and I was like, I can't believe it's already 7:30 and we're done and we're leaving. Oh my gosh, I like, really love this group. And then I'm looking them up online to find out when they're meeting again. And because it just felt so yummy, felt
Mhm.
so good. I think we need to
Mhm.
be aware of that for ourselves, which really has a lot to do with being aware with what we need
Mhm.
as a human,
Mhm.
to be around.
Yeah.
So,
And then not feeling bad. There's
no.
just so much of that, especially in this space of female entrepreneurship. Well, I feel bad, or, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they're just busy. Like I find a lot of people make excuses for the other person. And at the end of the day, it often doesn't change. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
No, it doesn't. I always say how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I'm super also proud of that.
Yeah.
I know some women, they'll say, well, I'm a little different on LinkedIn or how I talk. And then I'm a little different on, and I'm like, listen, I get that because someone's trying to be more business over here than they might be on Instagram. I just show up how Colleen Biggs is everywhere in her entire life. If I walked into my church building, if I walked into my community center, if I went to a local happy hour, if I showed up online for my coaching group, if I was doing a training, if I showed up at one of my big conferences and was leading that, I show up the exact same person. And what that helps other people define for me as a person is we know exactly who we get when Colleen Biggs is in the room. We know who she is. We know how transparent she is. We could tell you, what she does for a living. They always use the word kind and generous and sweet. And I just am proud of being a good person.
Mhm.
And I'm going to show up that way everywhere. And it doesn't mean I don't have bad days, but I don't send out invitations to those bad days to everyone else. I do my little pity party and then I move on. And there's other times when we need support. And I think those are my favorite times because I'm, pretty steadfast for a lot of other people. But as a coach, you are, right? I've been a coach for 20 some years. When you're not in coaching mode, or maybe you're having a bad day, you're like, I need someone to lift me up and pour into me today. And I love to see all the women that come, to the front lines to be there. A friend of mine talks about that. Who's in your front line, your front row? If you're standing on a stage, who are those people? And if there's people in those front rows that are causing issues for your life, like no one wants to look down at someone that's being disruptive when you're on stage in a front row. If that person's there, you need to boot them to the back row and not be afraid that you can give yourself permission in your life to do that. This is your life. I
Right.
don't have to do something I don't want to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's okay.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Something I heard um, in alignment with, showing up the same way. And I thought this was like so like mind blowing to me. And I had to adjust this myself earlier last year. So it's been over a year now, but how you show up inside your head, inside
Mm.
your house, and then outside, like in your business online. And I had a huge disconnect because I'm pretty
Oh.
fucking fierce. And with my husband, with our business, we run a sport fishing business, which is super hard. Like there's nothing like it. And we have shit to do. And that's the type of coach I am. So it's like, okay, I need to show that online too. But yes, I have a big heart and I'm compassionate, but I was missing like that I have an edge. And I wasn't like owning that like out there in the world too. So I think that's really important for people, especially when you are a powerful female, that you're also like showing up like that way and not afraid, to do
I'm
that.
glad that you
So
said that because have you ever gotten in someone's car and it's like super messy? And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My car's messy. Like ignore it. I swear I'm not a messy person. And I just kind of laugh because I even had a daughter-in-law say that to me for like a long time. And
uh-huh.
then like when she was living with us for a while. And then when she moved out and like moved into her own house, like it was always messy. I thought to myself,
Like, no, no,
it
you're
actually
messy.
is exactly how you are. But
Mhm.
why do you care? Why do you care what I think? Or why are you trying to slough it off like I'm not? Who
Mhm.
cares? You
Yeah.
are who you are. Be proud of that. That's why I said how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I'm glad you said that, Melinda, because if you're not, so if you are that way and you can you're the CEO of your family and you've ran a household for 20 some years and now all your kids are going off to college and you're like, I want to start my own business, run it like that. Run
Mhm.
it like a household. If you run it like a household, you'll be fine. You
Mhm.
will be totally fine. But for some reason, there's like this something goes off in a woman's mind and she thinks, oh no, I have no experience. I'm not equipped to do this. You've been a CEO of this corporation in your house for all of these years. It
Mhm.
is the hardest job on the planet. It is
Mhm.
absolutely the hardest job on the planet. So why not run your business like that? And why not be proud of you being able to multitask, of your calendar skills, of your scheduling skills, of your whatever it is. I've seen a lot of moms even, become VAs, like virtual VAs for other companies, because they're like, I love to do this work. I just want to like kind of virtually do it. I don't want to go into it. I've always worked from my household because I've ran my household, and they become very successful at doing that and
Mhm.
running VA businesses from their house and then hiring other women or men in that want to become VAs as well and work virtually so that they can, maybe some of them have younger children and they need to raise their children at home. So there are so many businesses out there, Melinda, that women can start, but they have got to show up the way that they're meant to show up for that and get out there and get on video and get visible, because your network truly is your net worth. And if people don't believe that, then you're going to struggle. You've got to continue putting good people around you. Stop being the smartest person in the room. I don't care what your ego looks like. Stop it. Just stop.
Yeah.
Learn. Learn
Yeah.
from other people.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I share the same birthday. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And for my podcast, I can't remember what episode it was, maybe 78. I did my like most recent three, like hindsight, mistake, learnings, however you want to put it, like whatever.
Yeah.
And one was that I was slow to work on getting visibility. And
Mm.
that was definitely one of my things. So do you have something that you would say is like one of those like favorite failures, or that you wish if you could have done it over? Like,
I think I'll start with one of the biggest wins, I think, for me that I tell all women immediately is you've got to get out there and you've got to get seen networking. You've got to kind of be everywhere to start. You have more time than money when you start. So get out there and be seen everywhere and start talking to people and go into groups and just meet, right? Chambers are great. There's so many places you can start meeting people online for free. Go to Meetup. So I always say you've got more time than money. So get out there and meet people and start, getting out there online as much as you can. I think for me, the biggest failure, which was also the biggest lesson, was, going through my partner breakup, was I didn't think I could build it myself. I didn't think I could go into business and be a successful business owner. And I felt like I needed to have someone there. And after I went through all of that, it was like, I can do this by myself. Like, are you kidding me, Colleen? What the heck? So I think that was a huge moment for me of disbelief, where I didn't believe in myself enough. And I had this big word on right in front of me is a wall of like my black belt and runs that I've done and all of my accomplishments and first magazine I ever produced and first magazine I was ever in. And I have this big word believe on the wall, because I feel like no matter where we go or success level we hit or where our milestones are, there's still that little tiny bit that you start thinking like, but do I believe it? But is it possible? And that's where personal development comes in. We have to just continue to believe and utilize the tools that we need individually that keep us on that line so that we don't fall off that train of disbelief that we can't hang on.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. Well, my motto for my brand is I help my clients believe, take action, and trust. So,
Love it.
and
Perfect.
I've had that since the beginning. And what I think is really important in that, that people don't realize is that you have to believe it first before you see it. You have to hold that. And it's really fascinating. This is kind of a crazy story, but it's coming to my mind, so I'll share it. And it came to me again the other day when I was on a walk and I was thinking about something. Oh, I know what it was. I was looking at the stars, and I've seen shooting stars before. I've had like orbs fly over my shoulders. I've seen all sorts of things. And normally people go to look for UFOs because they want to believe, right? So they look to see so then they can believe. And years ago at a CE5 event, a spiritual event that I went to, I had like this crazy thing happen to me. I wrote a blog about it. I'll put the link in there if someone wants to read about it. And there's a picture of me. And when I thought back to that, it was like, I didn't need to see it to believe it. I already believed it, which is why it happened. So when I think of like my whole life and how like we've manifested everything where we live and all the sport fishing business, like it's crazy. Like I always just believed before I could ever see it.
Yeah.
And getting your emotional system to really understand that is everything. So yeah, so keep your sign up, girl. And everyone put a sign up if you don't believe.
I
So
love it.
remind yourself.
It's a great way for us today, to have this conversation, because I really believe that surrounding yourself with people that support you makes
Mhm.
it easier for you to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. When they share stories, I mean, that's what storytelling's all about, right? Like sharing and be like, oh my God, like, okay, if someone wants to read
Mhm.
this article that I wrote and watch the little YouTube video, they'll be like, holy shit. And then they hear how I did
Yeah.
it. They're like, oh, wow, okay, I can hold the course on something that I wish to happen. I wish to manifest. I'm just going to
Mhm.
hold that I believe it and just trust that it will eventually like happen.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
great.
So this has been an amazing conversation. We talk forever.
Yes.
So yeah, do you have any final thoughts that I missed asking you about that you definitely want to share with everybody?
No, I really think it just comes down to surround yourself with the tribe of people that are fueling your success and not sucking every bit of you and your energy out of you. I would get rid of those people. And I know it's very hard, especially when they're family members. And I've been through it, I've walked down that path. It is very difficult, but you've got to construct the people that you are hanging around the most, that have the most influence in your life, to be those that are fueling and building you up, not breaking you down.
Yeah, and you talked about that again in Mark's podcast. So definitely everyone go listen to that podcast. It's so good. You spoke about takers, and that was, my big takeaway, no pun intended, is that, I struggle with that, especially as a writer. Like I write for the paper, and a lot of those people end up becoming my clients, but some don't, and they're just takers. So I have this little like that, happens, and being able to set boundaries and feel good about it, I think is, part of the journey. So,
Yeah, setting boundaries is really part of kind of putting your big girl pants on and being the CEO of your company too. Like, think about if you were running a ship, with 15 employees, there'd have to be boundaries for everybody, right? There's boundaries. So if you're the only one and you've got contractors and teams working with you, and you've got to set boundaries with all of that. So you've got to have boundaries for yourself. And I love that. It's
yeah.
not okay to allow someone to just keep taking everything from you, and you
Mhm.
feel like you've got nothing left. So, and you will have nothing left at the end, I promise.
Yes, that's so true. It's so true. So
Yeah.
how can the listeners support you? How can they connect with you? And I will obviously put everything in the show notes too.
No, I'm glad you asked that question. So, my main website, ColleenBiggs.net, has a lot of, that's a great place to connect with me, see everything I do on there. But, if you Googled my name, Colleen Biggs, with two L's, two E's, and two G's, I have done a lot of work on creating what I would call my Google resume, and that's the visibility that I have as a person and as a brand. And there used to be like a few links of me, several years ago, and now there's like 6 pages of me, and I have no idea where any other Colleen Biggs went. So there's not even a ColleenBiggs.com out there. There's just not. I have ColleenBiggs.net because I can't find who owns it. But
Mhm.
I will tell you that if you do the work and stay visible, people are going to soft stock you online long before they ever hire you for anything.
Mhm.
So you need to be able to show where you're showing up. And I show up out there on Google. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And gosh, we're so kindred. It's so funny. I tell people I dominate my name in Google.
Yep.
So everyone out there, you need to Google yourself. And if you see some other person that's not really even your name, like you need to work on that.
Yes.
So
You are not showing up enough on other people's platforms. OPP. I always say, yeah, you know me. So you're not showing up there and you're not showing up on your own enough. That is the sign right there that you're not.
yeah, and look
Sure.
for, start a podcast, have a YouTube channel. My writing
Yeah.
appears, books. You have what, 7 books, like,
Yeah.
3, like get out there, people, do something. Be at
Yes.
medium.com, like do something.
Sure.
So yeah, so thank you so much. This was amazing. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And it's been so awesome to get to know you too. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're amazing, Melinda. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please connect.